everybody, my name is Jenny Wu and I'm a co-director for Splash. So today I'm going to be teaching you how to make Chinese dumplings. So these can be pretty time consuming to make, but it ends up being really rewarding and it can be a great bonding experience for family or friends. So I'm going to start off by introducing some of my ingredients. So we're going to be making two variants of dumplings today. One is going to be the traditional pork and chives dumpling, and the other is going to be a vegetarian variant with shiitake mushroom. So for my vegetarian variant, I'm going to be using these lovely shiitake mushrooms here, as well as some cabbage. So this is napa cabbage. It can be a bit difficult to find in a traditional grocery store, but you can always substitute with regular cabbage. Now, regular cabbage is a bit harder, so you'd have to boil it for a little bit beforehand to soften those leaves up to the texture that you can mold into a dumpling. Now, for my traditional variant, which is pork and Chinese chives, I have Chinese chives here. These can also be a bit difficult to find in a traditional grocery store. So instead of these chives, you can also use cabbage instead. So make a pork and cabbage dumpling. And then to garnish both of these variants off, I have some green onion here. So I have my lovely assistant Victoria here, and she's going to be preparing some of the vegetarian dumplings with me. Okay, so in this bowl, I'm going to be making dough. I have flour and water in about a 4-to-1 ratio. So 4 cups of flour to 1 cup of water. And I'm just kneading this together, and you want to keep mixing the dough and the water until it reaches a nice consistency where it starts to stick together. So you can see that my dough is starting to clump. The dough has come together nicely. As you can see, it should be nice and firm when you press your fingers into it. So I'm going to keep rolling this for a bit so that it really comes together, and then I'm going to let it chill in the fridge for an hour. So here I have a little more than a pound of ground pork, and I'm just mixing it together. And I'm going to add a little water, just a splash, to really let everything come together. So as you can see, this looks nice and sticky now, and this will be good for the dumpling filling. I'm going to add a little bit of oil, just for some extra stickiness. And just keep mixing it together. Okay, so now that this has come together nicely, I'm going to add in the other ingredients. So this is a nice pork and chives dumpling mix. So here I have about 1-to-1 chives and cabbage that's been chopped up. Now this looks like a lot of green and not a lot of meat, but the vegetables will really reduce down once we cook the dumplings. And here I have some green onions that I'm just going to add in as well. Okay, and now I'll just mix everything together again. Okay, so this is what it looks like when it's all mixed together. Now to season, I'm gonna add some light soy sauce. Doesn't really matter if you have soy sauce, just add it. So just a splash. And then salt and pepper should really take you where you need to be. So just some pepper. A little bit of salt. The soy sauce already has a lot of salt to it. And some sesame oil. Okay, here I have my vegetarian mix. It's just about a 1-to-1 ratio of shiitake mushroom and not cabbage. So I'm just gonna mix this together a bit, and to season, I'm probably just gonna use about the same seasoning as the pork mix. So some oil to help it come together. Soy sauce. Sesame oil, just a dash. And some salt and pepper. And again, all of these vegetables will also reduce down quite a bit and help the mix really come together inside the dumpling. Okay, so here I have a section of dough. I'm gonna go ahead and roll it out into a dough snake. You wanna make it nice and even so that when you cut up the dough, it cuts into even chunks. So this determines how big or small your dumplings are. Okay, so now that we have this dough snake, I'm just gonna cut it into little sections. So I'm taking about maybe an inch for each of these. Now I'm gonna mash these flat. So with these little sections here, we can begin rolling. Now I'm gonna start rolling the dough. So you wanna mash this pretty flat, and this is gonna help you get it as round as possible. So I'm gonna be positioning my hand like this around the dough, and I'm just gonna spin it as I'm rolling. So this is just like a constant motion as you roll and spin the dough. And you wanna use a bit of force, but not too much. And spinning the dough as you roll will allow you to make a nice even motion and spin the dough into a nice circle. And you can see that there's some blemishes on here, but that doesn't really matter. As you roll it out, they'll become a little bit easier to work with. So I'm just spinning and rolling. And as you notice, why am I not just rolling it like this? It's because you want to make the center a little bit thicker. So I'm really trying to roll out the edges here and keep the center thicker so that it absorbs the filling and nothing leaks out. Otherwise, we might have holes. And there's our nice dumpling dough. I have a couple rolled out now. And of course you can use pre-made wrappers as well. They're usually available in a lot of grocery stores. If you do use pre-made wrappers, they're like perfectly round, machine made, they're very nice. But you do have to use some water to wet around the edges, like a wonton wrapper. For these wrappers, since the dough is fresh, you don't actually have to use any water. So I'm gonna start the filling process. So I'm using chopsticks here. You can use a fork or a spoon, whatever helps you get a nice dollop of the filling. So here, you can see I'm kind of pushing it so that it makes a little bit of a blob on here. And you want a nice radius around your filling, a nice comfortable radius so that you can wrap it properly. And if you're just starting off, you definitely want to start with less filling rather than more so that your dumpling doesn't explode out a little bit. Okay, so now I'm gonna go through the filling process. So I'm gonna start with a crimp along the top. So I just fold it in half and crimp along the top here. And I like to position my hand where it supports the dumpling from the back. So this is the really big step that lets your dumpling stand up rather than like flop to the side like that. So my dumpling is already standing up here with this crimp. And now I'm gonna take this top layer here and fold it towards the front so that it makes a nice little fold. And you can see that each time I'm making a couple folds right there as I press it in. And that's one side, and you can see that it has a nice beautiful design along the back. And then I'm gonna switch hands and go ahead and do the other side as well. So each time you grab some from the back and you push it so that it makes that nice fold. And it's a bit difficult to get a hang of at first. It's like origami, but you know, if you don't want to make the nice fold or it's not coming naturally, you can just fold straight across as well. And there's my little dumpling. This is another one that I like to use to show off sometimes. I call it the UFO dumpling. In Chinese it's called a huezi, so it's not exactly like a dumpling, it's more like a little sandwich. So I'm going to try to make a nice flat filling this time. And this time you don't have to have as big of a radius. You can kind of just have maybe like a centimeter or so along the sides. And you want to get another dumpling wrap that looks about the same so that you can overlay it. So make your little sandwich. Now we're going to start making the dumpling. So here I'm going to pinch my first crimp right here. And now this is also a bit like origami, but you're going to go and push in and pinch here and then push the top back. And you're just going to push your fingers along the top and the bottom and make a nice braid like this. So each time I'm using my thumbs here to push an extra fold in, and then I'm going to take the back and fold that in. And I'm just going to come along here and fold this in. Sometimes it doesn't want to fold in a way that is natural, but you can try to just kind of force the dough to go along with you. And there's my little UFO dumpling with some nice sprays along the side. Okay, so here I am with my lovely vegetarian assistant Victoria. So I'm going to be working with the pork filling and she's going to be working with the mushroom filling.
And so are we.
Oh yeah, and I just want to take a minute to introduce our lovely dough rollers. So these are hot sauce bottles, and you can use any cylindrical surface really. I like it to be nice and small to roll the dough with. Let's go. So dumplings have always been a really meaningful experience for me and my family. We make it a lot throughout the year on holidays, so it's like a nice experience where we all come together and make them together. So it's something that I wanted to bring to my friends in college. So I remember reaching out to my RA and we started planning a little dumpling night together where we would bring all of the residents in our residence hall together to make dumplings. So Victoria was my roommate back that year.
And for another year.
That? Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I remember being really, really bad at making them, and I still am, even though I think we've done it like at least a couple of times a year since then. I feel like it's a pretty popular pastime, and especially now in lockdown, I think this is the second time we've done it in the past like month or two. And I never improve at, at making them, but it's really fun, and I think that like it was a really good bonding activity freshman year. And now we're about to graduate, and I still can't make them, but you know.
Improvement takes a lot of time. It took me probably 10 years to be able to make a dumpling that could stand up on its own. So Victoria has come a long way in 4 years. So Victoria, could you share a little bit about Russian dumplings since you come from Russia originally?
Yeah, sure. So my mom does make them, but she actually uses like a shortcut. Like there's this plastic grid that you can use to put the dough on and the fillings in. Then you kind of like crimp 2 sheets of dough together. You don't have to like do all of this, but it doesn't look as nice. So I think Russian dumplings are basically the same thing outside of shape and filling. Like the shape can be similar, like the grid that I talked about, so they look like little hexagons. And we also have some kind of strange fillings, like potatoes. Like you can just put, I guess, carbs inside carbs, and that counts as a meal over there. But I guess I think Chinese dumplings tend to have meat, right?
Yeah, usually pork.
There's also sweet dumplings in Russia, which are my favorite. You can put like cherry jam or like some sweet cheese, which is interesting. And I think freshman year I tried doing that and it turned out bad.
I do remember it.
It wasn't good, but like I would not do it again.
I think it was still a very nice meal.
Johnny, how old were you when your mom taught you how to make dumplings?
I don't really remember. I mean, she always made it from my childhood, but I feel like the first time she involved me, I was probably maybe 7 or 8.
Oh, that's pretty young. I don't think I would have competently done that as a 7-year-old.
Yeah, I was really bad. It was mostly my mom and my brother doing all the work every time we did something like that. And then one day, I remember it was like probably the 4th or 5th time we made dumplings. I made my first dumpling that could stand up straight by itself instead of like flopping over when you put it down, and it was a huge accomplishment. I felt really good about it. So are Russian dumplings usually boiled?
Oh yeah, I guess that's a big difference. Like, because I guess Chinese dumplings are boiled or steamed. Actually, they're not boiled. Are they ever boiled?
Yeah, that's actually the traditional way to make them.
Oh really? Yeah, so Russian people don't fry their dumplings, or like it's more of a new thing. It's really not traditional to fry them.
Yeah.
And we don't steam them. Like we don't have a soup dumpling equivalent or anything like that. Yeah, I think soup dumplings are really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've always wanted to learn how to make those, but they're even harder because you have to work with gelatin. So your soup has to become gelatin in order for it to, I guess, stay in place while you're making the filling, and then it'll melt back down into soup after you steam it.
So cool though.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I had them at a friend's house like over Thanksgiving once, and I had to ask his mom like how the soup gets in there, I guess, because I don't know, it's a very foreign concept.
So did they actually make them from scratch?
You know, I'm not sure, because his mom was just giving us dumplings for breakfast.
Wow.
Unless they were
that
like
would take a lot of work.
pre-made.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I guess, yeah, she either made a ton of them and froze them or store-bought. Trader Joe's has soup dumplings.
Mm-hmm.
How are those, Jenny?
They're pretty good. It's nothing like something that someone has made there right fresh for you, but still really good.
I've only ever had soup dumplings like a couple times. I think I did some. I know I had them with my mom in New York once. And my mom is a Russian lady who has like never had ethnic food until like she comes to visit me. She really liked them. She thought it was weird too, like just in terms of like the texture, I guess. I don't know, I think it's just surprising for the soup to be in there.
Where did you go in Maryland?
So this was actually in New York, so I think this is a pretty famous restaurant in like Manhattan. I don't know. I guess in Baltimore we just go to Chopsticks for dim sum, right?
Yeah.
Which, hope they're doing okay.
Yep. So here I have a pan on medium heat with the oil starting to heat up, and as it's heating up, I'm just going to start arranging my dumplings on here. It's okay if they touch because they won't stick together in that short of a time. So the oil's going to start to get hot, so I'm working pretty quickly here. I like to make a pretty little circle around here, and it works with the shape of the pan. Okay, so now I have my dumplings laid out, and I'm just going to let it heat up and crisp a little on the bottom. And I have a bowl of water ready here so that once they start to get crispy on the bottom, I'll add the water in. And the water is going to be but we'll let it steam as it's also frying at the same time. Okay, so you can see that the dumplings are starting to brown nicely a little bit on the bottom. So that means that it's ready to add the water now. So here I have about a cup, maybe a little bit more of water, and I'm going to be ready with the pot lid because this can spatter. So I'm going to pour the water in and then immediately cover it with the lid and allow it to steam. So it's important to let that steam build in there and keep it covered the whole time. So I'm going to go right now and cover it. Okay, and you can see that the dumplings are swimming in there, but the water isn't actually covering them. It's just enough to let them steam. Okay, you can see that they're boiling very nicely. So it's been about 10 minutes, and you can see that the water has dried up. So that's like the good sign that we're looking for. When the water is dried up, that means the dumplings are back to frying, and you can see that they're developing a lovely color along the bottom here, which means that they are pretty much ready to go. So I'm going to toss them around a bit.